My name is Arin, I'm a big fat liar, and this is Arin Reads. Today we're going to talk about the books that I read in January and February, but first, I need to come clean. I mistakenly misled you. If you've seen my booktube newbie tag, you probably saw me say this. If you're here for contemporary fiction or straight romance, I'm not the guy for that. And now we're gonna do a wrap-up where like half of the books are straight contemporary romances that I loved. So I think my lesson through all of this is to never say definitively that I don't like something unless I really put in the work to find that out. That's what I'm learning about myself. On top of that, I'm currently reading a lit fic and absolutely living, laughing, and loving. So if I make any grand definitive statements about my taste, particularly what I don't like, because I have pretty good feelings about things that I do definitely like, but if I say things that I don't like, give it a few months, you know? Just give it a little time, and then we'll be back here, I'm sure. And I'm sure that I won't stop making these big definitive statements. But now that I got that off my chest, we can do a quick wrap up. I've been on a bit of an impromptu break lately because my chronic pain got really bad. It still is. I think that's just my life now. But I want to get back into the things that bring me joy, like doing this. So for today, I just want to do a quick wrap up. Try not to chat too long. Let's see if I'm physically capable of that. So the first book that I read this year was the first Veronica Speedwell, Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. You guys. You guys. This was kind of, I think, my entry into cozy mysteries, and it definitely helped that this is a historical one because I love historical settings. I've only read the first one, but it seems that it is a series in which Veronica Speedwell, who is a very practical, analytical, but also really like ahead of her time, very independent, kind of amateur detective, and she's also a lepidopterist. She catches butterflies and kills them and pins them and sells them to rich people and like studies them and whatnot. And she meets Stoker, who is a very attractive... Do I know any words? What is that? When there's a dead animal and they like stuff it and put chemicals on it. Taxidermist! He's a taxidermist in like a museum-y way, and they meet, a mutual acquaintance is murdered, and they need to solve the murder for their own protection. I loved it. I love the chemistry between Veronica and Stoker. I think that the main reason that I started this series was Katie Coulson, and she pitches it as a romance ahead of a cozy mystery, and I get it. Most of the appeal is the relationship between Veronica and Stoker. Love, love, love. And I've only read the first one, and it's a really slow burn. But the mystery itself, still intriguing, still kept me going, but in a low-stakes kind of way, you know? It was a very cozy, comforting read. I really loved the settings. They were really detailed. I was really immersed. I loved the characters. I definitely recommend them. And then I read Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. Another absolute banger, you guys. This one is about the women affected by America's first serial killer who goes completely... first celebrity serial killer who goes completely unnamed throughout the novel. And it is two survivors whose loved ones slash friends were murdered by him, and they are trying to testify, gather evidence, convince the right people, get reporters on their side, all of this stuff to make people take them seriously and to convince people that this really charming, likable man is actually a diddly who is shortening the lives of women who are extraordinary. And so the whole thing here is that he isn't extraordinary, but violent and lucky, and the women whose lives he cut short were extraordinary. It was really beautiful. It really kept me going. I personally would have loved if the setting, it's set in the 70s, I believe, if that was a little bit more immersive, at least a little bit, but also I'm me. I love an immersive historical setting, so that's probably just a me thing. The characters were so interesting, so flawed and complex, and you were just rooting for them the whole time. I definitely recommend this one. I'm a pretty anti-true crime person, and this really beautifully laid out all the reasons why. Highly recommend. Next, I read a couple of graphic novels. The first one being Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Marika Takami and Rosemary Valero O'Connell. Beautiful. I love the illustration, the art style. This is about our main character, Freddie, who is dating a girl named Laura Dean who keeps breaking up with her. This like really hit if I think back to my teenage years. It's kind of about putting all of your eggs into the basket of a significant other who is really like too young to treat you well. In a relationship where both of you are really too young to like have a long-term relationship, and just completely sidelining your family and your friends in order to put all of your eggs in this basket. And I really genuinely wish that I had read this when I was in high school, not only because I really could have used some queer representation. Ooh, shirt check. Anyway, I really could have used some queer representation in high school, but what really would have helped me is that lesson of like, hey, you're 16. You're not gonna marry this person. Be a good friend. Be a good sibling. Put effort into the other relationships in your life because frankly, they're probably more important in the long run than your high school, a few month long partner who would rather be eating Doritos than actually have a meaningful conversation with you. I really wish that I had read it, and I feel like I would have gotten more out of it if I had read it then, and right now I already know that lesson, and so reading it, it was kind of like, yeah, you're telling me. But the characters were still really well developed and like very flawed, but in a way that was really compelling to me. The representation was great, the art style was great. I liked it. The next graphic novel that I read was A Guest in the House by Emily Carroll. This one was about a woman who was, I think, in like her late 20s, but she married a man who I would guess is like in his 40s, and he already has a daughter from a previous marriage. He tells her that his first wife died. It gets a bit like Rebecca, which is one of my favorite novels, in that she starts to be haunted by her husband's first wife. But in this one, let's just say she doesn't hate her. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? She's not super opposed to being haunted by her. You know what I mean? It was really good. It was really good. It was horrifying. It was not what I expected. It was beautiful to look at. The characters, again, flawed and very fleshed out. It was really good. I highly recommend it. Okay, and next I read Rabbit Hole by Kate Brody. So this one is sort of a literary thriller about a girl whose sister went missing when they were in high school, and it's like a decade later, and her dad takes his own life at the very beginning, like the first page of this book. And she finds out that he had been in this deep, like, Reddit rabbit hole of trying to investigate her sister's disappearance along with internet detectives. And I think this is the low point of this list. I think this is the only book that I would call, like, just okay. I didn't hate it, I didn't dislike it, I read it pretty quickly, but it wasn't quite what I was expecting. I was expecting a twisty thriller, dark, gritty. I was, I mean, this like really gave me the vibe of like, okay, we're gonna be investigating and it's gonna get gross and we're really gonna dissect like the internet true crime culture. And it's kind of that, but it's mostly a literary character study of the person in this situation. And so I think that if I had gone into it with those expectations, I would have liked it a lot more. But because I was in the mood for something like thrilly, twisty, gruesome, and picked this up and it wasn't that, it was kind of disappointing. Next, I read another cozy mystery, which was In the Company of Witches by Orally Wallace. This was great. I think I actually do like cozy mysteries. It just has to be like the right kind, which is kind of what this whole thing is about, is me liking genres I didn't think I would like. But this one is about a witch who is a recent widow, and she's mourning the loss of her husband and has moved back in with her aunts and uncle, who are all also magical, in an inn that they run. Someone is murdered, and they must solve the murder so that people don't think it was them. I love witches. I loved the autumnal vibes, even though I read it in January or even February. The study of grief was a little rough because I did lose my grandpa last month, but it was also very gentle. Really just like, it had a lot more emotional depth than I anticipated. But if you're a setting person who likes a cozy autumnal time with some cozy mystery, then this is like definitely the perfect one. And now the rest are romances. I don't know what to tell you. So the first one is A Love Song for Ricki Wilde by Tia Williams. First of all, this cover is one of the most beautiful covers truly I've ever seen. Like, this is phenomenal, unbelievable, so beautiful. This is about a woman who decides to pursue her dreams, break out from like the family legacy, and open a flower shop. She gets this opportunity to move out to Harlem to open this shop, and she becomes really interested in the history of the Harlem Renaissance. Her love interest, we jump back in time because he is living in the Harlem Renaissance. He's a pianist. For the first chunk of the book, we kind of jump back and forth between their timelines until things happen that make their timelines converge, and thus romance ensues. This was my first Tia Williams. I loved it. I loved the writing. I loved the characters. I love when romances have a bit of speculative, kind of magical realism sprinklings, which this clearly had. I tabbed it a fair amount, especially because I really loved Ricki. And so much of the things she says, most of these are from her saying something and me being like, oh my god, yes. Just really relating to her in a lot of ways. This has some drama, but it's balanced really well, at least for me, with comedy. I really liked the balance there. It had a lot of depth of feeling. It made me think a lot. I highly recommend it. I really enjoyed it. Up next, if you've been here for a minute, you'll know my history with this series. I read A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch by Sarah Hawley. I love this series. I don't know what to tell you. The first one is about a witch who accidentally summons a demon, and he can't leave until she makes a deal to give him her soul, so they're stuck together. This one is about her best friend and his mentor. And after the first book, like, we hate this guy. We hate this guy. And I was really not convinced that Miss Sarah Hawley could convince me to like him, and she really sold it. She sold me. She showed me. She did it. I really enjoyed this. Not as much as the first one. The first one, I loved the first one. This one, I still really did enjoy. It's just fun. It is just candy. You know what I mean? Even though I say that, it did still have like deep themes of understanding oneself and finding someone who loves you, including the parts of you that everyone else hasn't so far in your life, and how meaningful that can be. Like, it still had a lot of like really touching, meaningful things that made me think a lot, but it's also just fun. You know, they're a witch and a demon. It's just fun. I liked it. So the next one, I was like, okay, I'm on a romance streak. I'm loving this. This is my time. And I wanted to see what all the hype was about. So I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. And okay, I understand. I understand. I understand. Ooh, the feelings. even just thinking about it, just the feelings that this brings out in my heart. I don't know what Miss Abby Jimenez put in this book. I got yours truly. I'm planning on reading it soon. That's the sequel. It made me feel so much. So if you somehow don't know, this is about a doctor who is part of a huge legacy of really important doctors who work at this important hospital in the big city. She comes from money, she comes from education, she comes from hoity-toity city life, and she finds herself falling for a small town boy. He's a woodworker, he runs an inn, he has a little goat who wears pajamas, and a dog who jumps up on her and gets mud on her fancy dresses. We are so different, and yet we bring out the best in each other, but how can we be together when we don't fit in each other's worlds? I can't move from the city to be with you in this small town. You can't move from your small town. You're the mayor. You can't come to the city to be with me, so how are we going to be together when we live hours apart in completely different worlds? This is a great example of conflict between romance characters, like, really being earned. Like, you don't want it to be there. You're like, hey, you guys, you make each other so happy, you make each other better people, you're so beautiful together, like, please just figure it out. But at the same time, you understand the problem. Like, they're big problems keeping these people from each other. I love both of the main characters so much. Their relationship, like, my heart hurts just thinking about this book, but in, like, a delectable way. By the end, I was, like, so near happy tears. It is so good. It is so good. But the next one might be my favorite of this whole stack. The next one is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. And I just need to start this out with, I am biased, okay? Because our main character, Chloe, has fibromyalgia. I have fibromyalgia. I was just diagnosed November? I think in November. And I'm still coming to terms with it, still figuring it out, still making peace, figuring out how this affects my life and the changes and accommodations that I need to make for myself, all of that stuff. And reading this book meant so much to me. And I knew that it would, but it meant even more to me than I anticipated. Especially having read it while I'm still grappling with all of these life changes and, like, this perception of myself, how that's changed, how it's hard not to let it, like, affect my hopes and dreams, like, all of that stuff that comes with finding out that you have a chronic illness that's going to cause you pain for the rest of your life. It brings a lot of really heavy stuff. And it's been really hard for me to work through it, and I'm I don't mean to say that in a way where, like, I figured it out and I'm great now, but I have so much unpacking to do, and I'm still very actively figuring my shit out and figuring out how to take care of myself and how to continue to see myself as strong and continue to believe that I can achieve the things that I want to, even with all of these added struggles that I know now that aren't going away ever. This beautiful, fun, spicy, sweet, hilarious book really helped me in that process. The thing here is that we cover these heavy topics that each of our main characters have been through, but they still get a cute, fun, beautiful romance. It's still rom-com. She talks about the pain she's in throughout the book. It affects everything that she does, but she still finds this beautiful, fun relationship and still learns about herself and loves herself and is loved by someone else. It just really meant more to me than I can seem to find words to describe. It just broke my heart and put it back together, to be dramatic but honest. It has a silly premise. Chloe is almost hit by a drunk driver at the beginning of the book, and she realizes that she hasn't done anything with her life, and she's like, if I died, I would be so disappointed in the obituary left about me. Like, I've done nothing. I just stay at home and work and watch TV and go to sleep, because she's very protective of herself, because pain is with her at all times and she doesn't want to push herself too far because then the pain will just get worse. And so she's like, I gotta break out of this cycle. I have to experience things. And so she makes a list of things that she wants that will make her life fun and help her to get a life. She meets her new, he's not the landlord, he's like the person who lives in the apartment building and fixes things for people. What is that called? They meet, and at first they don't really like each other, and then they're like, okay, let's be friends. And then of course it's a romance, so then they're like, oh damn, I'm in love. When they hit the friends stage, she asks him to help her get through this list of things to help her get a life. It's so cute. It's so sweet. It helped me learn so much about myself. If you have fibromyalgia, for sure. For sure. If you don't, but you like a fun, funny, sweet, spicy, romantic time, also pick it up. Because that's the other thing, is you don't have to have fibromyalgia to like this. I just want to say that. I'm just saying that it really improved my experience. It like took it from a wow, this is a great book to like, wow, this is a life-changing portrayal for me. That was the last book that I read. That's the whole wrap up. I was gonna have him wave to you and then he got pissed. Which is fair, I shouldn't manhandle him. He deserves my respect. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this. If you liked this, feel free to subscribe, to like the video, comment, have you read any of these? Did I convince you to read any of these? Are there any books you think I would like because of what I liked here? Let me know, I would love to hear it. Me and Luca have to go do something, probably. I don't know. You ever play your cat like a guitar? Anyway, I'm gonna go now. See you next time. Bye.